Hey guys, Bradley's Garage here, working on a BMW X5 E70, doing a front brake replacement. Dealer wants $1,000 basically to do this job, so we're going to show you how to get it done for less than $250. We're going to be using the FCP Euro kit. As you can see, it's $239. Comes with everything you need: rotors, pads, sensor, good to go. Here's a quick overview of the tools. The list is in the description below, so check it out. Step one, get the car off the ground on jack stands, and we're going to pop the wheel off. 17mm lug. Just get that off, take the wheel off, and you're ready to start. Alright, so first step, plain tip. Pop off this little retaining spring. Just kind of keeps pressure on the pads there. And then I use a plain tip to push back the pads a little bit into the piston, just to give yourself a little bit of room to be able to pull the caliper off. Don't worry about the sensor and stuff, you're replacing all that. A couple of little dust caps that hold the caliper on, just pop that cap off, upper and lower. Okay, next get your Allen and loosen up these caliper bolts. Sometimes they stick in there a little bit, so you want to give them a little wiggle. Get them free of the carrier there. Okay, and then simply just lift the caliper right off. What I like to do is just make sure that sensor wire is off, and then you can kind of just lay the caliper in a cradle there, and then that inboard pad just pops right up, just spring loaded, so it sits inside the piston there. And then you have the little brake sensor that comes right off of the pad. Like I said, don't worry about that because you're replacing it anyway. So it looks like we got about 3mm, so they're pretty worn. Next step is to remove the carriers. This uses the E18 socket, so if you have those, obviously grab an E18. If not, you can use a 6.14mm. That'll be your standby if you don't have the E sockets. So just spin those off and the carrier comes right off very easily. So now what I like to do is just push the piston back, so when you got the new pads, then it'll make it easy to slip onto the new rotor. So I just use some channel locks and slowly squeeze it back till it's flush. After that, get your Allen and remove the holding bolt that holds the rotor on. Just one single bolt. Sometimes it's a little stuck, it gets rusty on that hub. Give it a little tap with a mallet and rotor's off. Okay, then I just take a little brass brush, clean up the hub a little bit, brake clean, make sure the surface is good, wipe it down, and then I put a little anti-seize. This just makes it easier next time when you want to remove the rotor, you need to take it apart, that the rotor comes off and prevents corrosion and stuff. Then I pull out the little guide pins for the caliper, the little slide pins they're called. Clean those up a little bit. Make sure they're nice and clean. That way you have even pad wear. If for any reason those things aren't lubed properly, then you're going to get an inboard or outboard pad that's going to be sticking a little bit more. So I'm just doing a little cleanup. My brush, get some of the gunk buildup off of the caliper, and give it a little shot, brake clean, and get it ready to go for pad installation. So after you get the caliper ready, then I just do a little cleanup on the backing plate, just get the surface debris off and get it ready for reassembly. And we're going to start playing around with the caliper. Next step is get some grease. I like to just put a little grease on these pins, the slide pins, just on the smooth part of the shaft there. Insert them in to the caliper, and they kind of are in like a little rubber boot, so they typically stay there and don't fall out. So get yourself ready. Okay, now we're gonna get our fresh new Brembos. Open that box up, and there's a little surface, typically manufacturer's surface protection to keep it from corroding. So I just hit it with a little brake clean on both sides to get that coating off. I don't think there's much on these Brembos, just very minor. And you want to set this guy in place, and then you're just looking for that single hole for your Allen. They give you new ones in the kit, so just get that started, and this will help hold that rotor in place while you finish putting everything back together. Sometimes it's, you know, a little tricky to get it started, but I usually use my socket, and makes it a little easier. Cinch it down and you're ready to reassemble. Alright, then I just realized I needed to do a quick cleanup on the carrier. We got the caliper and the backing plate and everything cleaned up. I just wanted to also get the carrier cleaned up. So just a quick wipe down and it's ready to go. Okay, so now the carrier is cleaned up. We're going to get it reinstalled. You get your E18 bolts, get them into position, get them started, and cinch them down with your E18 or your 6.14 millimeter, whatever you've got access to. Next step is inside the kit they give you a little backing grease. This is just to prevent squeak. So put a little on the piston itself, and then I put a little on the outside edge of the caliper. That's just to prevent metal to metal squeaking. Got my Akibonos. There's the part number for the fronts. Nice pads. Get them opened up, and it's obvious what goes where. The front is smooth, doesn't have anything on it. The inboard pad is going to have the metal spring clip, so that goes inside the piston. So it's kind of challenging sometimes because it's brand new, so it's a tight fit. Once you get it in position, it just snaps into place. Next is just make sure these pins are out of your way, otherwise you'll be hitting against the carrier when you try to install it. So simply slides right over, get into positions, really easy. Once you put that, push that piston all the way back, it's super easy. Get your caliper bolts started. You just use the socket to help me get those in place and ready to roll. And yeah, just tighten them down. Really simple. So after you get the caliper tightened, and you're just going to put those dust caps, they just push right back in. Next is the spring clip for the front to keep that tension, keep the caliper in the right position. So I usually get the bottom started, and then you can, usually you can just use your thumb. Sometimes you might need to get a screwdriver, but it just clips right back in place. Next step is we're going to replace the brake sensor wire. So it's kind of behind there, so I know it's kind of tough to see, but it's in a little clip, like a little rubber clip, and you want to pull it off the back side. And then there's another little holder on the strut tower. You just want to pop that off, and then it goes up the fender liner here. There's a little junction box, and that's where the electrical connection is. So just take your pry tool, pop the cap, and then we got our little electrical plug here. Just use your little tool, lift up on it, and it should come right out easily. So there's the new one. They give you that in the kit. So like I said, you got everything you need. You got pads, rotors, brake sensor wire, new Allen for your rotor. So everything you need to be fresh. So figure out the orientation, get it plugged in. I start at the top there in the fender liner, get it back into its little slot. It's like a little groove on the bottom there, rubber. Close your lid, come down on the strut tower, and snap it into place. And then this is behind the rotor here. Like I said, sometimes it's rubber, goes into this metal thing, it's kind of tough. And then we'll show you here on the front side. It's has like a little ring that goes around the bleeder screw. So you just turn it upside down and it fits on there. And the little dust boot cap over the bleeder is what supports everything. And then this the brake sensor is kind of like a U-shaped. Obviously the round part goes into the cutout of the pad, and it just simply pushes straight into the pad just like that. Okay, now we're ready to put everything back together. So get your wheel, get your lugs, and get everything back together. Usually just use the socket to start everything, makes it easier. You don't want to be messing around with the impact if you don't have that started. And I cinch them all down with the impact. I don't use it to tighten, and then come back with the torque wrench, and we put the specs down in the description for you. So give it a little torque, double check everything, and we're good. Thanks for watching, guys. Feel free to like and subscribe if you found the information helpful. Take care.